Thank you very much, Sami, for a great introduction, and I will continue from here on. I'll just put that on bigger mode. Here we go. As Sami said, today we will go through the different sections of the non-academic CV by giving examples, so step by step. And just very briefly about me before we get into the actual topic. So my name is Eva Lindström and I work as a career coach for TEK. And I have been here now 3 years and I do personal career coaching as well as helping with job search documents such as CV and cover letter, and as well preparing for interview. And in addition to this, I also have different workshops and lectures in different teams. And before I came to TEK, I was working, for example, in Poland with HR tasks, and I did my master's in the Netherlands, so I have a bit of international background myself as well. Nice to see that so many of you are online today. Now, just a few remarks before I start. This webinar is now mainly intended for international professionals seeking for a job in Finland, but of course it's also suitable for Finns applying for a job in English. And I would also like you to observe that we are going through a non-academic CV today. So these tips are for CVs used when applying for a job in the private sector or like non-research tasks, so to say. An academic CV looks a bit different, so don't keep this in mind. And when it comes to making a CV, there's a lot of different opinions about what makes a good one, what is right and what is wrong. And this is now today, from TEK's perspective, this has worked for our members. And I'm sure these tips are also applicable for people in different fields. But this is not the absolute truth, so do keep it in mind that there's a lot of different opinions when it comes to making a CV. Now, although we are talking about making a CV today, I still want to begin by saying that the most important part of your job search is done before you start tailoring your CV. To know what to write in the CV, you need to do some self-analysis. Ask yourself, what do I get excited about? What do I want to learn? What do I want to do? What am I good at, and what skills do I want to use in the future? So first of all, do research yourself. To find opportunities, you need to do the research and need to have a vision where you are going. Then again, to be able to know what do I actually write in the CV, you need to do the research regarding the employer. What skills are appreciated in that organization? What kind of skills do they need? What kind of working style do they expect from me? What kind of opportunities can they offer me? And to be able to figure those things out, you need to read their homepages, read the news, employees' LinkedIn profiles, ask someone who works in the company, what is it like? Can they tell you something that will help you in your job search? What products do they have? What values do they have? What projects do they have? What budgets and strategy? All those things will help you in your job search. So again, the biggest job is done before you start writing your CV. Ask yourself what makes you professionally unique, and then target your skills, your goals, your wishes, your expectations to the needs of the employer. By doing this, it's also much easier to know what to put in the CV. What things should I highlight for this particular position? Now, all too often, the job seeker is focused on what he or she is looking for in a job. Let's say, for example, income, benefits, location, responsibilities, title, or maybe corporate culture. But on the other hand, the employer might have an entirely different set of standards for what they are seeking in candidates. And here I have listed some employer so-called hot buttons. Just some examples of what the employer might want to see you possess. In addition to this, of course, is then industry or task-specific knowledge like certain technical skills or project management skills. But a pro tip for a job seeker is to make sure that some of these things that I list here are found in your job search document, and that you then, through examples, show that you possess these skills. So tailor-make the example to suit each and every position. Let's pick a few examples from the list. Getting things done, for example. Employers quite naturally look for candidates that get things done, keep deadlines, show results. So I would definitely recommend that you spend a little extra time to think and concentrate on bringing out your accomplishments and your results in your job search documents. And this is something also I will go through a bit more in a bit later stage today. What else? Social skills, communication skills. Examples of communication skills can be your ability to build professional networks, and an example as well as of a social skill, and so on. So there's a lot of different ways to express these things that kind of employers find interesting. Then, so how do you target your CV? The focus on relevant things. And so how do you know what is relevant? Well, that is exactly what I just went through. To do your research yourself and the employer and match those two. And in order to market your abilities in a CV, you must know not only your prospective employer, what they desire, but also what you have to offer them. And there is no such thing as a ready CV that you can use for all jobs you're applying for. Different jobs will require different CVs, and you need to highlight different qualities, qualifications, achievements for each vacancy. And in some cases, perhaps even omit others entirely. And this applies to all the sections of the CV, and I will talk about this as well a bit later. Another tip is to read the job description very carefully and use words from the job ad. What I usually do also with my clients is that I make a list of requirements, the job advert, then I see what do I or the client have to offer for each and every one of them. I also check what kind of terminology do they use in the job ad. I pick out keywords and make sure to use them myself in my job search. This is kind of a way to speak the same language as the employer. Then I also wrote here, call to find out more. And I would say this is probably the most important thing. And I definitely want to encourage you guys to do this. Calling, first of all, to make a good impression, give a more personal picture of yourself, but maybe most importantly, it is a way for you to get more information about the research, the open position. And here I want to highlight that you should call before you send the CV and the cover letter, not afterwards, because then you missed your chance already. So the point of calling is simply to figure out something extra, some other added value that you can then put in your cover letter and CV. And number 5 here, research the organization and the sector. This I already talked about today, but I can't highlight this enough. Make sure that you know where you are applying, and show it also in your job search document, that you highlight those things that seem relevant for that particular employer. So the objective of your CV is to get an invitation to a personal meeting. Obviously, you want to get the chance to have an interview with the employer. A CV should also be comprehensive and easy to read at the same time. This means that it should not be a list of your whole work history, but rather a list of your most relevant skills and experiences for that particular position. So focus on relevant things. Again, I will talk about this a bit more later. Another thing that can make a CV easy to read is paying attention to the outline and what the CV visually looks like. Having a visual CV is one way of kind of showing your own personality, giving a modern vision or notion of you as a job seeker, kind of a fresh impression. But I always want to highlight that do focus on the contents or the text, but a visual or a nicely looking CV is always a big plus. And I will also go through visual CVs end of this presentation, give you some tips where you can make your own visual CV. Other concrete tips regarding the CV length. The length of the CV should be in a proportion of the length of your career, and preferably not be longer than 2 pages. And I know when it comes to CV length, there's a lot of opinion. But I see a person with a longer career, of course, can have a longer CV than a newly graduated person. So kind of see what is the proportion to my career. I think 2-page long CV is good. But as I said, there's different opinions about this. And well, I would say it's not necessarily the length that is most important, but rather that you have included the most relevant information for that position you're applying for. It's like no point of having a 1-page CV if there's not enough space to express all your experiences. Then language. A general rule is that the language of the CV should be the same as the job ad. There are some exceptions here. There might be some international companies where English is very widely used. Therefore, also a cover letter and CV can be in English when you apply, even if they would put the ad out in Finnish. But always try to match the language with the job ad. Then a very, very simple tip. I very often get CVs called Maria's CV version 3 or something like that. And here I would like to highlight that do name it properly as possible. So last name, first name, CV, and then the date. The recruiter might get hundreds of CVs, then it's very easy to find you among the big pile of CVs that they have. And an extra remark, I also encourage you not to use the Europass templates when applying for a job in Finland. That is mainly intended for people applying for a job in the actual European Union, that is the headquarters of Brussels. And it's also a very, very long document. Rather, try to tailor make it and use other templates than the last one. Here, very quickly, is a summary of all the basic elements of a CV. Contact information, a summary or profile, some form of list of competences, work or professional experience, education, and then in addition to these, you can add information about language skills, IT skills, courses, position of trust, awards, prizes, publications. Maybe something else that you find relevant, and then of course references. And now I will go through each one of these step by step. Contact information. This is a very important section of the CV where you should have your name clearly stated, then phone number, email, and I would here also recommend that you add your LinkedIn profile address, your location, maybe even your home address, but sometimes it might be better to leave it out, especially if you're applying for a job in another city than you live in. Then you can add information about your, if you have a homepage or YouTube channel or a video CV or whatever relevant link that you want to highlight already there. That gives more information about you. Now, the next things I will mention is a bit of a delicate topic, but I thought I'll add it here regardless, because I think it's an important thing to discuss. That is regarding the profile picture and the date of and place of birth. So regarding the picture, I know there's huge cultural differences when it comes to this. But in Finland, it's still very commonly used that you put your own profile picture in the CV, and I also recommend that you do so, but it's not a must. Also, date and place of birth is quite common and is still used in Finland. But as I said, I am aware of that in some countries it's not even allowed. But here we still do it. And again, I recommend that you do so. I promote openness, and also kind of it gives a more personal picture of yourself. A good profile picture is a headshot suitable for the industry in which you are applying for a job. It should be a recent and a picture that gives a professional and positive impression. And it's also completely okay to smile in the picture on the CV. It does not need to be very serious at all. After your contact information, you can have a so-called introduction or a summary section of your core skills. This is also one way of kind of making the reading easy for the recruiters, that there's one section when they, with just a short glimpse, get a quick overview of what your core skills are. So write a short summary or a descriptive overview of the most relevant skills and experiences you can bring to the job. And here I encourage you to be clear and focus on key areas of knowledge and experience required for that role. And this is very important that you remember to tailor for every single position. There is no one intro or one kind of summary core skill that you can have. This is really depending on where you're applying. And here I made a kind of a suggestion of how you can build your CV intro. You can start with just one bullet point telling, for example, what kind of things makes you excited? What is your goal? What kind of skills would you like to use, or what skills to develop? Then you can continue with, let's say, 3 to 4 points or skills that you want to tell that complements what you previously wrote, so the chosen goal above. And very relevant here, you can, for example, describe your background or where you have worked, what kind of jobs, what do you know, what are you good at, what is your education? Such things you can list here. And thirdly, back these facts up by giving concrete examples. This can be feedback or accomplishments that you have from previous job experiences. So this is one way of building a nice summary section. It can consist of 3 to 5 lines, be bullet points, very kind of short and direct. But I always recommend making some form of intro to the CV. Then education is usually the part that comes after the introduction to the CV, but here again, this is something you can play with. Is education your strongest point, selling point at the time, or maybe the work experience is your strongest point? I would also ask you to think about this, that in what order the things come should also be kind of your strongest edge. What comes first is the strongest, what comes second, and so on. So there is a difference also in what order you tell these things. Education, here should be studies leading to a degree and is presented in reverse chronological order. So state your most recent degree and study entity first. Here you should have the name of the degree, the school where you studied, and the year of completion. You can mention your major and your minor, the topic of your thesis or the final paper, if it's relevant to the job you're applying for. And also here, remember to mention studies that you have completed abroad, for example, Erasmus exchange. And this is also the section where you can mention matriculation examination or high school diplomas. Then we get to experience section. This is maybe the most important part of the CV. Now, I have seen quite a lot of examples where a highly educated international talent sends me their CV. And when I look at it, it seems like the person has no work experience whatsoever. But then when I talk to the person, it turns out they actually have quite a bit of experiences working, for example, in their home country, in their family restaurant, or working in a restaurant in Finland, or anything very, very kind of practical jobs. And now this is going to be a bit controversial to what I have said before, that you should tailor make your CV according to the applied position. But this is something you can only afford when you have a bit more of work experiences. So if you are in the beginning of your career, by no means leave out so-called not relevant experiences. Rather try to think outside the box and add, for example, voluntary work. Whatever that you can put in your CV that shows that you have work-life skills. Examples of you getting things done, examples of communication, social skills, problem-solving skills, technical skills, ability to network, and so on. It doesn't need to be full-time paid work at all. Because this is what the employer wants to see, that you're able to cope in the Finnish work environment. And from an outsider's perspective, if you don't put anything at all in the experience section, it looks like that you have done nothing. So fill in the gaps, make the reading easy, and don't leave the room for interpretation. A fact is also that Finns, not all, but many start working at a very young age and have summer jobs already as teenagers. So by the age of 20, they might have quite a lot of work experiences. But this doesn't mean that it's relevant at all to what they, for example, studied or study. But they still have a lot of experiences from work life. So this is what you are kind of competing with. So once you have worked longer, you can afford to select what you mentioned in the CV. But if you are still in the beginning of your career, do add so-called not maybe industry relevant work experiences and show that you have the skills that is needed to cope in a work environment. And call this section then, for example, only experiences and not work experience. Before I go to how to write about your skills, I want to spend a few minutes and what skills actually are. A very common practice, at least among our members, is that people, they focus on so-called hard knowledge, hard competences. Let's say what I've listed here: marketing, logistics, processes, strategy, programming, research, and so on. But I want to here as well highlight that do remember the soft skills, and these might be something that can be very, very important to highlight in your job search. That might be your added value. I want you to think outside the box again, that what is the added value I can bring to the organization? My networking skills? Is it my language skills? Am I good at working with customers? Am I good at working in virtual teams? Just as an example. But then let's go even to a more concrete level. To tell about your skills and competencies, you need a verb to explain what you have done. An active verb then gives a more dynamic impression. Try to be also as concrete as possible when you write about your skills. This helps the reader understand what you actually done, how you do it, with who, and what is the scope of your responsibilities. So talk about the things that you actually do in your everyday work. What, for example, would be a typical project in your work? Let's say a project management title is something that I can come across quite often, but this can mean so many things. It can be a project that lasted for 2 days or for 2 years. The budget can be from thousands to millions. So outline your responsibilities with numerical data, such as budgets, number of personnel, duration, and the scope of what you are doing. Also link your work to a broader context. For example, tell like what at which point of the project have you been involved, from the planning stage until the end of a project or a specific stage. To what extent do you work independently or together with others, and in what way? In large groups, pairs, virtual work, and so on. And tell why do you do your work? Is it to reduce the manufacturing time? Is it to reduce errors? Is it to develop an entirely new solution, improve quality, increase turnaround? The examples are many. Try to, in this way, make it more easily understandable. What have you actually done through active words, concrete examples, and linking it to the broader context. Here you can see just 2 examples of how you can write about your responsibilities in the work experience section. And now I'll get to what I talked about earlier, so related to the hot buttons. Employer hoping to get someone who gets things done. And I encourage you with at least 1 sentence in the work experience section, add information about how have your activities contributed to some form of achievement or result that benefited the organization or the employer. And I will now spend some extra attention to this section, because this is usually one missing in people's CVs. So show that you do things well, that you get things done, and you make progress and solutions. And a very basic level would be, I did that thing, but rather I now encourage you to write on a more sophisticated level. I did that thing and resulted in this, and this proved this much, and the feedback I got was this. And if you have a job that doesn't have kind of clear measurable results or achievements, then think, maybe I got some good feedback. This is also a very good result or achievement. Or you can also add that you've managed to finish a project, or if you, for example, have secured a career, been promoted, you can tell what were the reasons that you were found to be the most suitable person for the new role. Why did you get new responsibilities? What kind of strengths did you have? What kind of skills did you have that helped you succeed? This is also a way of kind of bringing out results and achievements. And again, here are some concrete examples how you can write about achievements. And here I also want to highlight, it doesn't need to be a mind-blowing example. It can be very kind of small things, but do remember putting them in the CV. So to sum up work experience section, it could look something like this. So each job description should have a heading stating your position title, name of the employer and the town, and the end and start date of the employment. And the most common time format would be month and year. No need to put the exact day when you started or ended. Also a tip, especially if you have work experiences from your home country or for different countries, is to add a short description of the employer or the company's basic information. Let's say the branch and the size and the turnover, for example. You might be in a situation that you have worked for in your home country own big company, but they are not known here in Finland. So definitely use it, give your employer the credit and show what big an important employer really is in your home country. It's kind of, again, being one step a bit more obvious than you might be if you're applying for a job in your own country. If you have been employed in the same job for, let's say, a longer time, 10 years, 5 to 10 years, I would also here recommend that in the job or work experience section, you can divide that particular experience into periods. So kind of show how you have developed within that position, that it hasn't been kind of the same the whole 10 years. You can kind of, make own subheadings to explain what kind of tasks you have had with 10 years. Then responsibilities, you can add a few bullet points with active words, and then achievements with their own subheadings listed like as in the example from the slide. This is I like doing this. It can be done in many different ways, but this is kind of a very simple and clear way of highlighting responsibilities as well as achievements. Then let's continue to IT skills and language skills, and I'll start with language skills. And here again, I have just a few examples of how you can make it look for in a visual CV. First of all, list all the languages you have command of. So even if you have just in elementary skills in Finnish, do mention it in your CV. It might be the added value. Show again that you have interest in the language, even if you might not speak it fluently. And also add an evaluation of the language skills. How well do you speak it or understand it? If a certain language skill is relevant for a position you're applying for, you can boost it a bit by adding some extra information about, for example, where or how you have gained this language skill. For example, you stayed a longer time period abroad, you had a language course, expatriate assignment, or you work in an organization where the English is the main working language. You can add a small side note here already in the language section to kind of highlight that you actually do speak it very well. These are kind of small tips and tricks that you can use throughout the CV to give an extra explanation to certain skills if you want to really boost them. And here also remember to include your mother tongue. Surprisingly enough, I often see with people forget to put their own mother tongue as a language skills. It is very essential to put there as well. Then IT skills, and here the most important thing, it easy to read. So it should not only be a long list of IT tools and languages. Try to kind of group them into different subsections again. And under that, be more concrete what actual tools are included into this subsection. Then it's easier to read and understand, get a kind of overview of all the skills you have. Especially our members might have a lot of IT skills, and this kind of helps to kind of get a quick look of what kind of skills this person has. And same here, add the level of your skill. Then let's continue. Other things that you can put on your CV, and these are experiences that complement your work experience. And I would like to start by saying that choose what is relevant. Doesn't need to be all these things in your CV, but for a particular position, one section might be more relevant than other. So think of skills where you have developed, got something that you haven't learned, job that still will be an added value in your job search. So for example, you might have gained great negotiation skills through a position of trust that you have in your spare time. Nothing to do with your work, but still a skill, negotiation skill is something you can very well use in work life as well. Courses, here I encourage you to state as much clear information about the course as possible. You of course choose the relevant courses. You name of the course, training organization, the year, and duration of the course, as well as credits, weeks, how long did it last, weeks or months. This might make a huge difference. How extensive the course was it a week or a half year? Do bring it out in your CV as well. Mention this information. And in this section, the courses section should be courses, so not leading to actual degrees, but rather something shorter or a skill that will still be added value for the position you're applying. And if there are several courses of this kind, only list the ones that are relevant for the goal of your CV, and you can combine older courses as well. For example, write something in like several management related courses in 2013 to 2019. And also remember adding online courses, like for example, Coursera might be of particular interest for some employers, because this indicates that you are on top of the game, you are keeping your skills, you're following current trends and so on. So definitely put them here as well in your CV. Regarding publications, here again, as I keep repeating, but only the relevant publications, if any at all, as it's not that common to use or add publications in a non-academic CV, but in some cases it might be relevant or of interest for the employer. But what you can also do is then, for example, enclose a separate list of publications to the CV, and then the employer or the recruiter can read them if they find it that's of their interest. Then projects, I recommend either making your own section in your CV and listing all the kind of different projects to be involved in. An alternative is that you put a project subheading in the work experience section where you list an example of the most important projects you have done. So there's different places where you can put the project information. And as well as you have a lot of projects, then cluster them in, just like the IT skills, like into some form of subsections. For example, under the team, or the time or the length of the project. Something again that makes the reading easy for the recruiter. Other things, occupational safety cards, driver's license, military service are things that you can mention in your CV. And hackathons, by the way, I find is an interesting thing. A lot of our members put it in the CV and can be a great value in the job search. Then let's continue to interest and activities. I often get questions that why should I put hobbies or interest in the CV? And the point is, of course, not the fact that you put it there, but rather what added value, what else or interesting will the hobby tell about you that might interest the employer? And some of the skills that you, and I said this before, that the skills that you gain through extracurricular activities might be very well of professional interest as well. So yeah, it's not the hobbies itself that make your CV successful, rather the way you present it and how it's related to that position that you are applying. So tell a bit more again, not only state playing guitar, go to the gym, but rather involved in the playing guitar. Do you have concerts, or do you perform, or do you coordinate with a team of people that you give a performances? I mean, all these kind of other skills that you gain through that hobby, that is of relevance, not necessarily the fact that you only play the guitar. Depending, of course, where you are applying, might be a relevant skill. Another question I get very often is about references. So who is a good reference? And I would say that the best referral is someone who knows from either a work environment or work-like environment. So it can be a teacher, supervisor, a coach, or boss or colleague as well, who can say something how you will tackle a situation to plunge, for example, to a more responsible task, how you solve problems, how you deal with challenging situations. So they can really know your ways of working. And you can also collect references and recommendations on LinkedIn, and you can refer to them on your CV as well. A few words about the gaps in your CV. Today's work is like very scattered, and short contracts and project work is very, very common. Therefore, the gaps in your CV doesn't at all need to be a problem when you're looking for a new job. If you are in a situation that you're tailoring your CV and you should start wondering that, okay, I have a longer break here now. Should I tell what I did as I was away from work life, or should I just leave it empty? Then ask yourself rather that, is this experience or will this experience support my job search? Is it relevant for the applied position? That I tell, for example, that I was on longer sick leave. Because regarding sick leaves, let's say away from work due to prolonged sick, whatever the reason was, I would recommend that you leave it empty in your CV. And if you are asked during the interview that what have you done here, there's a huge gap, then say that you were sick, you are now recovered, and you are able to return. And that's all you need to say. Again, in a situation where you have a longer period of being unemployed, let's say over a year, here, more important than in other cases, make sure that you have something to show that you have done during this time to keep your skill, keep yourself busy, or keep your skills up to date, that you have developed in one or another way. And this can be a course, a training, a volunteer work. Again, think outside the box, an online course, anything at all that shows your activity. Because self-directed self-development is a big thing that recruiters are looking for. The unemployment itself is not the problem, but rather that you then prove what else you have done during that time you were looking for a new job. Regarding maternity leave, I would say that you should only mention it separately in your CV if it clarifies a situation, the gap in your CV. But if it was a part of your employment, that makes that means that you worked there, you went maternity leave, and came back to the same organization or the employer. There's no need to mention it separately. And now, some words about the visual CV, and I mentioned this in the beginning as well, that just like fashion, hairstyles, and technology, also job search changes. And today, which is a very important part of job search. And as I said, a visual CV is kind of a way to show your personality, but it also reads or improves the readability. It might be easier to comprehend the things that you put in there, comprehend the different sections. It also gives a vision of you as a job seeker, that you kind of, it can give a very modern feeling if it's done correctly. What matters, however, is of course the contents, as I said earlier, what you write, what you put in there. So go through a general check for the design and make sure the current standards. Does it look a bit old-fashioned or traditional? If yes, you can add some colors to it or make some necessary changes to modernize it. Or then you can use free templates of visual CVs. And this is what I have here on my slide, a few examples. Word has come out with some really great Word templates, free visual CV templates that you can use. Also on Canva, you can find free templates. There's also the possibility to get more hardcore versions. They are then a small fee is charged, but definitely we're different templates can really make your job search look really fresh and modern. And as well from our homepage, TEK Työkirja, which is the address to our job searching and career guide book that we make every year, there are some examples of visuals. So go have a look. They're also in English. There's a lot of other useful tips for job search. But now to sum up today regarding the CV, remember to target it and show the added value you can bring to the organization. But make sure to first do your research. What is the added value for that specific employer? Show your achievements and results or feedback that you have gotten, that you're able to get things done, and choose only the things that are relevant. Thank you. That would be all I would have to say today regarding the CV. What about questions, Sami? I kept a bit shorter session today, but
yes,
I hope there come a lot of questions.
Yes, we do have questions, and thank you for that. Excellent points there. And I was very happy to see that you are making the very same points that we keep preaching about in Finnish here in Oulu, in Urasampo's courses all the time. But yeah, let's go to the questions. First of all, in your opinion, are there some major differences between a good CV in Finland and a good international CV? And to add, do Nordic countries follow the same CV format that you showed here? For example, if you make your CV like this, can you apply for jobs with it, for example, in Sweden? What do you think?
That is a very good question. I can't say for every single country how it really works, but I assume Nordic countries, we have some similarities. However, the more south you go in Europe, the more kind of, let's say, official job search documents tend to be, for example, in Germany, and also regarding especially the contact details and the pictures and so on, that should be left out the more south you go. But I would say these especially visual CVs are also used in other Nordic countries. So therefore these tips do apply for that as well.
Yes,
if I was able to answer the question.
Yeah, I think you were, and that has been our experience as well. If you build an impressive CV like this with the key parts, you can use it basically anywhere, as at least in the private sector. But yeah, let's take the next one. What are the most usual mistakes that people make writing their CV? Is there a worst mistake you can make?
I try not to focus on the mistakes, rather see the potential in the CV, how to make it better. Well, mistake is probably the fact that you can see that this CV is used, same CV is used for many positions. There's nothing that kind of highlights that you have tried to target it for a particular company. And what I kind of don't like is when I see very kind of general descriptions of skills. I'm a good team player or things like that. Rather highlight them through examples. What experience do you have that shows that you are a good team player? So kind of stating empty facts is what I don't like, but I wouldn't call it mistakes or worst mistakes. It's just yeah, it doesn't open or show the person's potential as well as it could.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you were also talking about targeting the CV, and that is, in our experience in Finland, one of the main points that should be thought of. So always think about the employer of that and think about what they might need, and then target it. But let's go through that section again. where could people find more tips about how to target their skill set to a certain job description? Where could they,
Okay, yes, sure.
research? Yes, exactly this that you have on your screen now.
Yeah, did I find the right slide? Yeah.
Yes.
I would say, yeah, the most important thing to do is, do the research. Make sure to spend enough time to read about the employer and the industry. Whatever you can find in the news. LinkedIn is a great source of information. Look at people's profiles, people working there. What kind of titles are there? How do they write about their experience? How long have they been there? Are they mentioning some projects? Anything at all that kind of helps you get a kind of an image of what's happening in that organization. This takes time and might be also the thing that we don't spend enough time with, but I always say that you do look at the strategies, do look at the values. These things can be very much considered in the recruitment process as well. Like, what kind of people are we looking for? It also, reflects on the values that they have. And I try to highlight the call to find out more, the importance of that. Indeed, I am also aware of that some companies, especially very big ones, might be difficult to get a hold of a person, a contact person, but if there is a number or a time that you can take the time to actually prepare yourself, think smart, like what would I still need to know so I can really target this CV, so I really know what is the skill that I should highlight in my CV and cover letter, and then ask such that answer that the things you are wondering about. And this can be, for example, questions that you can ask. It can be something regarding the task, or what do they see would be now the skill that is really needed in the team they're hoping to get a new member. Kind of open question that still kind of requires a quite specific answer that helps you narrow down what should I really concentrate on here today. And I gave the tip about reading the job description carefully, and as I said, what I really did down a long list and make sure that I have some form of answer for all the different things that are mentioned, or the requirements mentioned in the job ad. This doesn't mean that you need to have every single one of them, but you see what are my strongest selling points, and then put them there in the CV, at least highlight those. Again, doesn't mean you need to have every single skill that's asked for. Do you, Sami, think of something else that would be relevant for targeting the CV?
No, I
able
think
to explain a bit more.
Yeah, that's about it, I think. But good to go through again. Then let's take the next one. There are positions which ask to send a general CV without giving a specific job requirement from the employer. This means, is there any particular point to be considered when making CVs for such openings, when you basically don't know nothing about the coming job?
Good question. Now, I would say that actually might be a bit same situation as sending an open application, that you are simply targeting an employer but not quite sure what duties there might be. Again, I would say here applies what I just said, that do the research. And I would say even more important in these cases where you don't know, and go through people's LinkedIn profiles. What kind of tasks are their positions? What are the things? What information you can find, but you really need to dig, and then come up with some form of a suggestion of things that you can offer them. So in the, for example, the CV intro, you can have again core skills, but on a bit more of a broad scale. What you see would be the added value for that organization based on the information you have found. But of course, it can be more general, bit less specific, not to narrow down narrow it down too much.
Yeah, but almost always
yeah.
you at least know the name of the company or so then you can research.
I assume so, else it would be very, very tricky.
Yes. Yeah, let's take the next one. Do you know or can you recommend a sort of reverse recruitment agencies, someone who acts as the job seeker's agent to give advice, possibly find job leads and the like? The lack of a network can be a problem for many foreigners in Finland.
Indeed, the network is a good point. That's and so-called the hidden job market in Finland is big, as in people finding jobs through networks. But I have to say, I can't answer directly now here what would be an example of a reverse recruiting. Do you, Sami, have something to come with? I need to think about that for a while. Maybe I come up with some suggestion.
Yeah, I've actually opened a few websites here. They're not specifically maybe agents, but something to start with. There are these companies who match companies and especially people with high education. You should at least take a look at some of these companies. Mercury Urval is one of them. This will also show in the recording of this webinar. Then there's Adecco, who have a English site as well. There. And there's MPS. And Barona also connects companies and skilled people all the time. And at least these four have sites also in English, and maybe you can get started there. But it's always a bit tricky, of course, with no network where to start with. And one tip we always give to our people is searching for growing companies nearby or in Finland in general. And there are some news that you can Google and find. For example, here there's this article about growing companies in Finland who are very likely to hire new people soon. Then there is sites like Startup 100, the hottest startups from Finland. Basically, the same idea is to find companies that possibly need more people soon and are growing rapidly. These are just a few ideas I thought of here. What do you think, Eva?
Sounds very good, and I came to think of also, I think Kauppalehti has a list of top 100 companies in Finland. They list it online. And as well, job fairs, be active, as in make sure you get to talk to the employers, and job fairs are a very good place to go to make the connection, really talk to a person in the company, so you get the chance to introduce yourself. You might get a contact, they might have their business card there, so you again, easier way to kind of get a foot in the door, even if they not at that particular moment have an open position, but you still can kind of target them with open applications, which is something I definitely do recommend that you do, but remember to do the research before you do so. What added value can you bring to that organization?
Yes, exactly. And this actually brings us to the same thing we talked about also yesterday. This next question is as follows. How could I make sure that the recruiter sees my international background and experience as a possibility instead of a threat?
Here I would use the same way that I tried to explain earlier, is rather not stating the fact I'm an international professional, rather what skills come with it. So what does it include? That you have a diverse background, you have a different cultural background. Yes, it means that you have a maybe broader understanding of things, you might be more curious, you might have other skills that simply is that are very, very good to have also in the labor market. So highlight what added value had it given you that you come from a different culture. Do you have skills of that particular market? For Asian markets, do you know the African markets? Do you have networks there that can be used for when if you would work for the employer? Language skills, all that is of great benefit that I want to see that Finnish employers should utilize even more. But rather, don't just state it. Give facts, back up the fact that, hey, I know all of this. This is a proof of that I am very curious. I am more courageous. I have moved to Finland. I have, it takes a lot of guts to do so. So in this way, I would say. What do you think, Sami?
Yes, I agree. And yes, we have actually one more question here.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. First of all, thanks for the presentation. And is it valued to design your own user-friendly and interactive CV? Nothing like the current CV formats, but still very convenient to go through. And I think the core of this question is how creative can you get with your CV? What would you recommend?
Well, among our members, it's quite common to have a very interactive CV. Different. We actually had in the työkirja that I was showing you, or gave the link to for visual CVs. You had a article about this team a few years ago where one guy made his CV in the form of a computer game. So, I mean, options are just endless. Why not? If again, it serves the purpose of the job search. If you through that can show maybe other skills that you have, visual skills, technical skills, coding skills, whatever. But make sure always in whatever format it is it then a home page or whatever, that it's easy to read, easy to comprehend. The most important core skills are again highlighted. Your contact information can easily be found. And there's a point why you have it in an interactive way and not the kind of plain way. So there should be kind of, you should think about why am I doing this? Does it bring the added value to the job search? If it does, then definitely make it as a computer game. Maybe a bit of a extreme example, but was I again able to answer the question?
Yes, and I would add that so here target your skill set to the potential employer and think about how suitable is this kind of CV to different companies, and if the companies are creative, then you can be creative. This is the basic rule, I think.
I would say so as well, and it depends a lot on what kind of position you're applying for. If you are like a designer, then of course your CV should be very, very good looking, bluntly said, but it might not be of that much importance for other positions. So some companies might appreciate it a lot, others don't, and some industries it's a requirement, in others not. So it really again is about researching the company and their expectations and knowing what's going on in the field that I'm applying for a job.
Yes, thank you, Eva. This is it from us today, and I will say again what I said in the beginning, that also this and yesterday's webinar will be available as recordings later, and you will find them through the next year, even through the whole year, by going to urasampo.fi, then finding the English flag there, and we will have the direct links to these recordings right in the beginning here. But just thank you, Eva, and thanks for good questions, everyone online, and thanks for taking part, and we wish you all the best in the Finnish job market, and yes, have a nice autumn and all that.
And thank you, Sami. It was great talking to you as well.
Yes, thank you, and see you next time.